All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Mondays Down South. We are about just a few days out from Super Bowl Sunday. Could not be more excited for this weekend, gentlemen. And the plan for today's episode, obviously last week we gave kind of our analysis on how we think the game will go. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but the goal for today is to go over some of our favorite Super Bowl prop bets to help us and everyone prep for what is always a big betting Sunday. So I guess without further ado, I'll kick it over to you guys and say a quick hello. And then we have some basketball to talk about as well, though, before we do football. So we'll do that also.
Yes, go ahead,
hello. Yes, sir. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. Very much excited. On Friday, Alexa and I are traveling up. We're going to go try on some wedding rings. So that will be a good time. Yeah. So the guy we bought it from was actually up in like Great Neck, New York. So it's like right on the cusp of Long Island there. But it's like 25 minutes away from LaGuardia. So we're going to knock that out, Uber into the city, check into our hotel. Then it's just full speed ahead, man. We're looking forward to a quality New York trip. And I've actually even told her, like, there's two staples that we do each and every year. We at least we try to. And I had to educate her on the subject. Do you guys know what are the two things we always do every Super Bowl weekend?
Is this even a question?
Of course.
Come on. John's on bleakers and a little hooping at Chelsea Piers. You really think we wouldn't know that? Come on.
I was getting some shots up over the weekend, Jed. So you might be in trouble. You might be in trouble. The mid-range was on fleek, so.
I haven't tried a basketball in months, man. It's going to be brutal.
I know. That was in the same boat, so I was like, I got to get out this weekend and, not embarrass myself. But
I'm looking forward to this. I think we got Muskan on board, too, so we can run twos. We're good to go. Got a whole squad. Yes, sir.
Love it. Sai, you got anything before we jump into this massive NBA trade?
No, I was just going to say I appreciate your guys' patience. As you guys can see, I'm in a not my usual recording setup, my usual studio setup. I unfortunately got a bit of food poisoning, so we had to improvise, but these two were kind enough to work with me, and we're here now. So it doesn't matter. It's Super Bowl week, sick or not, we got to show up and give you guys the right picks and the right choices. That's why I'm here right now. So, yeah. Any other week, I probably wouldn't have been, but it's Super Bowl week, so you got to make it happen.
This is what we do on Mondays Down South. We put on no matter the circumstances because we know all of you rely on our expertise for everyone's watching very closely. But yeah, like I said, before we get into the props, arguably the most shocking trade, not just in NBA history, but in sports history of our lifetime, Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, a few other pieces here or there. So we wanted to talk about that a little bit. I know we don't do a lot of it NBA, and specifically kind of a prompt is, I know a lot of people have been doing this on Twitter, but giving if this was an NFL trade, what would that like kind of equate to in the NFL? So maybe I'll punt it to Zach. Zach, what are your thoughts on this trade? And then do you have a good NFL comp for it?
I mean, it was a horrible trade, and the Lakers just completely scruffed the Dallas Mavericks, and it just shows like a deep-rooted hatred. Something that's been like lurking behind the scenes. The video resurfaced of Luka Doncic trying to enjoy a beer after winning the West Coast Finals, or the Western Conference Finals, I should say. And the guy plucking it out of his hand. I don't even know who the guy's name is, but ultimately Mark Cuban's confused. The whole organization's confused. The one thing though that I will say is that Luka Doncic does not play defense, and he is kind of a lazier player for a superstar mentality. So I did kind of like, I was 99% chance, 99% against the trade, but like I will give the 1% to where the Mavericks are coming from, where it's like, I don't know if it's energy conservation, size or NBA guru. So I'd actually like to hear his response here, but like realistically, like he does slack off a little bit, and maybe it was just the direction that they wanted to go in. But overall, I think it was a horrible trade, and I think the Lakers got a lucky one. It's gonna be interesting to see how Luka and LeBron square off. Because they both kind of need the ball in their hands. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they make that work.
Yeah, I know. Zach, I think you're kind of spot on there. I'm honestly just in a state of confusion right now. Um, as you know, I've been a big Mavericks guy for the last year or two, ever since Kyrie got there. Big Luka guy, big Kyrie guy. They obviously just made the finals last year, which is makes this even more insane. They
Oh,
just
it's
won the Western
true.
Conference Finals and made the finals. And I recognize they didn't have a great finals run, but to win the West is no small feat overall. And then the year after, Luka Doncic is projected to be like the favorite for MVP. And obviously he gets hurt. That doesn't happen. But I just know there's got to be something more that we don't know. Like there has to be something more about something within the locker room, something with the GM group, because I don't understand, like in the grand scheme of things, how you trade away a 25-year-old perennial all MVP, all NBA. I mean, here's a crazy stat for you. The guy's a five-time all NBA player and he's 25 years old. Steph Curry isn't even a five-time all NBA player. Like, just think about how ridiculous that is. The world is his oyster, and for them to trade him away. And the other crazy thing is they traded him away without shopping him. This was all behind closed doors, and their goal was to just make a trade, and they clearly had an idea of what they were looking for. I heard there was rumors that there was another team they reached out to first, and that team didn't want it, and so then they went to the Lakers and said, "We want AD." And I think it's because Nico Harrison. That's who I'm gonna put the spotlight on. He's the one who made the trade. He's a GM. All things considered, he is the guy that got them to a finals last year. He's also the guy who traded for Kyrie the year prior, and he's the guy who made the midseason acquisitions last year to get them to the finals. So in terms of player personnel, until this move, all he's done is things that have gotten them, further along. You can't knock him for that. But this one move in specific is just so hard to process when you think about how did the Mavs come out of this and win? I think the only way they could possibly win this trade is if they win at least one, if not two championships in the next couple of years. And Luka doesn't win more than one with the Lakers. If Luka goes on to be like a multiple time superstar championship player with the Lakers and the Mavericks don't win a ring right now, they will get roasted for the rest of eternity. And I know Mark Cuban right now is probably like, why did I sell this team? Because he loves Luka and there's no way he would have been okay with this. So I'm just absolutely flabbergasted by this. I will say this, and I want to let Evan go. I do think in the interim, though, do I think the Mavs are as good as they were last year? No, because I don't like they traded away Luka. Obviously, I love Luka. I don't think they should have traded him. But do I think that they're good enough to compete? Yes, because I think the combination of Kyrie, AD, how well they've played the last 2 years, paired with all these insane amount of shot makers that they've added, and all these defensive guys they have now, they've created one of those like modern day competitive teams. Compared to the teams of the past, it used to be an all superstar driven league. Now it's more of a balanced league, and they have the depth for it. So the Mavs definitely can compete today. But it doesn't matter because if you don't win in the next 2 years, it won't matter if Luka ends up being what we think he's going to be. So I'll leave it at that. Go ahead. Ev.
Yeah, I think that a couple different angles here. The first is like I don't think there's any situation ever where you should be trading a generational superstar like this. I mean, you are able to get a player like this into your organization, like I don't know what, like 1 in 100 years, like kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it's almost at that level. So like you should never be trading that kind of an asset in a star driven league like the NBA. Like baseball is a completely different story where it's not as reliant on his individual people.
Sure.
But I mean, the contractual situation is interesting as I now start to try and like defend kind of the thought process because he's eligible for the supermax. They're starting this narrative that like there was a chance that Luka was going to turn it down and then like become a free agent, but like realistically, by signing the supermax with the team he's on, he's not turning that down. He's getting so much more money. Like there's no way he was going to turn that down, which has been made clear by Luka and like everyone since he actually got traded. So I think that is them trying to kind of just push a false narrative out there and like the whole defense thing. I mean, like they got to the NBA finals with him and his defensive liability. And if you can get to the finals, then you can win the finals. I mean, it's almost like how Brock Purdy got San Francisco to the Super Bowl. And while I don't like Brock Purdy, it's like, if you can get there and almost win it, like, you can win it with that crew. Like it was just kind of how the dice fell now. And I think their defensive rating in the regular season last year, so I correct me if I'm wrong, you'd probably know, is actually like top 10 or like at least like top half of the league, even with Luka.
Yeah, with
And
PJ Washington and Gavin and Derek Lively, once they had the full rotation going, and Derek Jones was there last year, they were one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Now, granted, that can mask a lot of the guard play. Kyrie also played exceptional defense in the playoffs last year because he was willing to like compromise his offensive game a bit more and let Luke kind of take over. So it was a bit of a unique situation. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, and so like, I mean, yeah, he got exposed in the Celtics series, just but like the Celtics will expose anyone. So, yeah, I just don't understand how you can do that. I mean, like, they have a competitive team in the West, but if they don't, like Sai said, if they don't win one in the next couple of years, I think they're absolutely screwed from the optics of this trade. And Luka going to LA is it's fun though. I mean,
It is
that's
awesome.
to go from Kobe to LeBron to Luka, and if there's anyone that can kind of teach Luka how to be more of a pro, then it's LeBron. So I think it's a good fit in that respect. And it's almost similar like how we talked about Russell Westbrook though. I think the narrative they're trying to push, like he was such an unbelievable player, but one that you can't necessarily win with, whether it's like locker room culture stuff and like all that kind of stuff. But I just don't see it for me. So I feel like that's the
I
narrative
think
they're making.
Yeah, I think that's a ridiculous narrative. And this is like I'm not trying to knock Russ. That you, I mean, I don't pretend to be the biggest Russ stan ever, but the flip side of that though is Luca just took his team to an NBA championship last year, and just 2 years prior to that, he took his team to a Western Conference Finals with barely anyone outside of Brunson back then. But Brunson wasn't the superstar he is now. This guy clearly knows how to win too. Like he might not have won a championship, but he's 25 and he's already gone to Western Conference Finals and the finals already. So that's a ridiculous narrative. The other part that gets me is I I clearly think this comes down to what their considerations of his weight and their worry about him being injured. I think their concern is that if they give him the supermax, they're going to get a Joel Embiid type situation or a Kawhi Leonard situation where he just keeps getting hurt every year. And I actually think Shannon Sharp made a good point when I was listening to First Take earlier. He was saying that if you give him, he's already making like $30+ million a year. If you give him close to like over $60 million a year, and he's already got the money, what is his motivation going to be to like actually be like, oh, I need to go be in shape or whatever? So in that way, I get it. Nico was a Kobe guy. He was an MJ guy. He's a LeBron guy. He's an AD guy. He's around guys that like they get amped up by like criticism. They get amped up when they lose. And the fact that Luca like lost in the finals last year and then came back this year like 30 pounds over the weight that they said he was supposed to be doesn't really speak volumes to his preparation in terms of his body. But I don't think that takes away from how much he loves the game of basketball and how much of a dog he is. We're talking about a guy who walks out on that floor, looks you in the eyes, and tells you he's going to take your lunch money at the end of any game. He'll start screaming at you when he scores. And I can't wait to see that in LA because he is going to talk his smack while he wins championships. And even though I'm a Kyrie guy, I'm going to be rooting for Luca too because I'm also a Luca guy. And I wish they didn't make the trade. I wish those two were still playing together. But man, he's gonna do well. And I think I will say I think the Mavs are going to be good too. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are there, but the West is not that deep. Oh, they're deep, but they're not that top heavy. I think OKC is by far and away the best team right now. But I think it's pretty open doors, especially because the Nuggets haven't been as good, and there's a lot of young teams that are kind of coming up. I still think the Mavs can compete in the West at least for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean for sure. I mean they still have a really good team. I don't know if that. I'm not gonna. I don't think it's a better team, which is kind of the argument that they're making. So,
can you imagine if Luka goes on LeBron James's like sustainable diet plan and he loses the weight? Because I'm thinking like the real trade should have been sending him to like the Pacers or the Jazz, where like food's not known in Indianapolis or Salt Lake City. But like sending him to LA, man, I mean, like I understand why I didn't make the weight cut when you're dealing with Texas barbecue left and right.
That's
but
true.
My goodness, I mean, that's a little bit concernable if you're the LA owner.
That's very true.
There was some funny tweets about like saying like the when Luka walks into Erewhon for the first time and he's like crying or something. Like,
that's the Haley Bieber smoothie shop. Yo, Evan,
I did hear the $20 smoothies.
I did hear a hilarious comparison. Not hilarious, but a good comparison. Someone said today that they think this could be as bad as the Mookie Betts trade. I don't know if it's going to be that bad because AD is an All NBA player. In the grand scheme of all this, I do feel bad for AD because I recognize, given the age gap and everything, like, and obviously Luka being a top 5 player, you can't 1-to-1 compare him. But Anthony Davis is no scrub. This man just like last year was an All NBA player and has also won a championship. So people keep acting like AD was just some like throw in piece. That's obviously not true. It still wasn't nearly enough value for Luka, but I just think it's kind of funny that like someone earlier today tweeted, man, people acting like AD's JaVale McGee today. I was like, that's so funny, man. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
It's just the age gap. You got to get more. I mean, Max Christie's good too. He's a good young player, but
He's a
like
good-
for
good player.
the age gap, you got to get more than that. But so, do you guys have any good NFL comparisons?
Oh, that's a good one. Did you come up with one, F?
I have a couple.
All right, go ahead.
So my first one is like Jared Goff for Joe Burrow, plus the pick, and like I didn't really come up with a good young player that could go as well, but yeah.
What do you got, Zach?
Okay.
Zach?
I'm still thinking.
It's funny
Zach?
you said that. It's funny you said that, Ev, because I was thinking the exact same person. I was thinking Joe Burrow, but I was thinking
Everyone's using Joe Burrow right now. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking Joe Burrow for Matt Stafford at the time when Stafford got traded for Goff. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
at that, I think that would be the perfect comparison when Stafford was still like a couple years away from being towards the close of his career and a great one at that, and then you're trading Burrow when he's like still very much in his prime. Like, as a matter of fact, Luka, you could argue, is not even in his prime, or like he hasn't even reached his prime yet. He's 25, so it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, Stafford at that time, because I was thinking like Stafford now is too late, where AD's at in his career. But yeah, as of a couple years ago, that's a good one. I'm trying to find a younger quarterback because like Joe is like right in the middle of his prime, but there's not really a good like young quarterback to to use as a comparison here. So I think Burrow's the best one.
I feel like Burrow is the perfect equivalent. Like,
Yeah, because
to
he's
Luka.
been to a Super Bowl and he's been to a championship game. But even then, you could argue Burrow is still not even in the same league as Luka Doncic. That's what makes it so ridiculous, right? Like,
And Burrow's still getting better too. Like, Burrow's shelf life, I mean, as a quarterback, I mean, he could be playing until he's 39, 40 years old. So he's like what, 27 now? 27 years old?
Burrow?
28?
He's 28, yeah.
Well, if I was going to ask you guys this though, who do you think is like more valuable for the respectable sport, Luka or Burrow?
Burrow. Oh,
I completely disagree with that.
actually, yeah, I was like, I spoke too soon. Yeah, I would still say Burrow.
I fully disagree with that. I think Luka has already accomplished just as much, if not more, than Joe Burrow, and he's a perennial, like, the thing in the NBA is one player can make a much bigger difference than any other sport, right? So,
I think that's my lean, is that the NBA is more like, obviously the NFL is very quarterback dependent, but like stars in the NBA, it's, you need them. So that's my lean, but I think it's a very comparable situation. Like they both made the finals, the Super Bowl, didn't win it. Luka has more of the, kind of individual player accolades from a MVP and, that kind of perspective. But yeah, the other one I saw that was good for wide receivers is Jamar Chase for Mike Evans plus. I thought that was a good one.
That's crazy. That would never happen. That would absolutely
never happen.
I will say this though, it is hilarious to see the Burrow Luka comparison because mentality wise, they get the complete opposite comparison in that everyone knows Joe Burrow's a dog and he's going to show up whenever he needs to show up, and everyone knows Luka's a dog, but they question his, like, his ability to like get in shape and stuff. No one's ever questioned that with Burrow, so it's a bit different there. But yeah. Anyway, that was a fun conversation. That's a good comparison, Ab. Yeah.
Should we go to some props?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, looking forward to this. First time we've done this kind of episode, so I have a recommendation on how we go about it, but feel free to to come up with a different approach. I think we could do like start with kind of like overall game props, totals, spreads, like things of that nature. I don't have a ton in that category, and then we can go team by team. So we can go like, Eagles player props that we like, and then Chiefs player props that we like. And then we can do just like random props for betting as well. So maybe we save the overall game props for the end, because I know at the end of the podcast, we also want to make we want to finalize our Super Bowl picks, since last week was more of a preliminary. So maybe we start with each team and talk about the player props we like.
Agreed.
If that's amenable to you guys. So should we start with the Eagles player props, gents? What do we got?
Yes,
Zach, you got one?
Yeah, I do have one. Jalen Hurts over 36.5 rushing yards at -110. Jalen Hurts has been dealing with a couple of injuries here left and right, but he's going to be running. And teams actually like to almost like warn him to like get the Philadelphia Eagles out of their game scheme. Washington and the Rams were like, oh, we were treating him like a running back. We're treating him like a running back. Defensive back and like defensive coordinators were saying this for these teams, like try to like get the ball out of his hands. So like they would at least know, okay, Saquon's probably going to get the ball here. Jalen kept it, and Jalen's gone over the 36.5 yards in both of those games. So I don't see any difference there. I think he's going to carry the ball quite a bit, and give me like a 12 or 13 yard rush from him that puts him well over the edge. I could see him having over 36.5 after 3 quarters. That's one of my favorite props on the Philadelphia side of things.
I don't think he did last week against the Commanders, actually. Not that I don't like it here, but
I think
only 16, I think. They basically didn't allow anything to.
That's hilarious Zach picked that, though, because I was about to pick – I was also going to say Jalen Hurts either over rushing yards or over rushing attempts. So Zach and I are on the same page. So he took mine there.
I was looking at it.
Combine. I was looking at combine.
Okay.
That's what it was, because Jalen Hurts was 7 carries, 70 yards against the Rams.
Yeah. I was looking at attempts. I think is interesting because of the tush push. I think they're going to be using tush push at nauseum as many times as they possibly can in this game, and obviously that's an attempt. So I think it's like 9.5, maybe something like that. So I think that's maybe a good opportunity. I'm not as keen on the yards, but that is a pretty low number for him to be able to hit. And he looked like in the Washington game, he looked healthy. It just like the plays weren't there for him to run, and he was throwing effectively. So
it's a good start that all 3 of us picked Jalen Hurts rushing, though. That's a good start for us, gents. That's awesome.
That's true.
You got one side on another player?
Yeah, I'll go with so one thing I've noticed is, or one thing that anyone who's watched the Chiefs will notice is they love man-to-man defense, because then they can blitz a bit more and run some of those packages they want to run. I expect Trent McDuffie to spend a lot of time on AJ Brown, and I still think AJ could have a good game, but I think that'll make it a bit harder for him. I know people love Goddard and such, but I think the secondary, specifically the guys like Justin Reed and them, are going to be better at covering the tight end than we give them credit for. I like Devontae Smith to go over, and I've been debating whether I want to go receiving yards or receptions. I think I want to go. I think I want to go receiving yards for Devontae Smith, though, because I expect them to pop a couple big catches. So I'm leaning that way for my Eagles like receiving line. Trust me, I would love to go with Saquon or something like that, but I just think the Chiefs are going to be a bit too smart about that, and his line is already so high. I think Devontae's a good guy to pick right now.
Yeah. Love that. Love that pick.
I think I'm on that, and I saw a stat that I think Devontae Smith has faced a Spagnuolo defense 3 times in his career, and each time was like well over the current number. I think he was like around 70, 80 yards each time. So I think maybe that speaks to, scheme. And I assume he's basically been the number 2 to AJ Brown in each of those cases. So I'm on Devontae Smith. I was kind of having the same debate on yards versus receptions, but I think I'm leaning yards as well, just because he has big playability. So,
and one other point I'll mention on that is that even in the past when he's played against him, like in the prior Super Bowl, Ladarius Sneed was the other corner, who's obviously a great corner in his own right. And I'm not trying to roast the other, secondary players on the Chiefs, because they're plenty good, but they're not Sneed. So I think Smith gets an even better matchup this time.
Yep. I like it. I am really hammering Dallas Goedert, though. I know the Chiefs actually are terrible against guarding tight ends. They're one of the worst defenses in the league statistically against it. So I think Dallas Goedert's usage has gone even higher lately. And he was an absolute problem for the Commanders. So I'm hammering Dallas Goedert. The number's about the same, 50 yards. So I'm way in on that. I think anytime touchdown on him as well is fun, since you're getting it at like plus 310. So Dallas Goedert is one of the guys I'm hammering. A lot of people online are hammering him as well. So I feel pretty good about Goddard in this game.
Okay.
You guys got it?
Was that your pick, Evan?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll piggyback off that. Still on Philadelphia. Plus 114 odds. Philadelphia will be the first team to record an interception. So I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to extend he's going to take too many risks in that first half. Cy and Evan had both mentioned last week, and I agree with this, that the Kansas City Chiefs oftentimes start slow. But however, I know that Andy Reid is going to start dialing up some passing plays and some packages pretty early on. And I think that there's just going to be one throw that gets away from Mahomes. I think he's going to have a Mahomes game. I think he's going to play great in this football game. But I see Philadelphia, with all the talent that they have in their secondary, making a big play on like a forced throw in the 3rd and 7 after they've driven like 20 or 30 yards down the field. And also one thing that we talked about, and Evan had mentioned specifically last week, is that Jalen Hurts doesn't take too many risks with the football. And so with all the talent around Philadelphia's defense, you got Q, right? Quentin Mitchell, you got Darius Slay, veteran presence, and then you've got Cooper DeJean, and you've got one of the best safeties in football, and Gardner Johnson. These guys are going to be hungry, and they might bait into a play with the limited fashion of the talent in Kansas City from a wide receiver standpoint. Count me in on the first interception being a Philadelphia defense interception.
Interesting.
What were the odds you said?
Plus 114.
It's not as high as I thought it would be.
If no one throws a pick, does it
push.
It pushes? Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Okay
good.
with that. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to throw a pick.
You know, it's funny you guys say that. I actually think the way the odds are set up with Jalen Hurts, I actually think betting him is a better bet because people don't expect him to make turnovers because he's not prone to them. But I think if there was a defense to get him to make a turnover, it'd be the Chiefs defense. So I kind of lean the other way, actually.
Yeah. I don't think he's throwing a pick. I can see a fumble out of Hurts, like a strip sack, but yeah, I don't know. Okay. Don't love it, don't hate it. Sai, you got another one?
With the Eagles specifically? I mean, I would go defensive side, but basically, actually, I would. My goal was just sacks overall in this game, but because we talked about it last week, I just believe we should hit the over on sacks. But that's not Eagle specific. I know that you said we could bet the overall sacks in the entire game, right? So
Yeah,
maybe I could
that.
skip that one. Yeah,
over 5.5.
Yeah, I'm debating if I want 5.5 sacks total game or if I just want 2.5 sacks by the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm torn too. You could have me go either way, but I just like. I guess what I'm telling our guests and people listening is just bet the over on sacks because I just expect those to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I see the Eagles getting a couple as well, and I could see the Chiefs getting like 5 by themselves. Honestly,
That's what I'm
I think
saying.
they're going to get quite a few. The last Eagles one I have is This is a risky one, but Saquon Barkley longest rush under 23.5, I think it is, or something around that range. So I did say this last week, and I saw some people on the internet betting it. So, gave me a little bit of confidence with it. I think the one thing the Chiefs can do is limit big plays. Now, that's incredibly hard to do against Saquon Barkley because he pops one. I think like 9 out of the regular season games, he had one over this number. So little 50-50 there. But I think the Chiefs, with how they tackle, can limit the explosive plays. I think his overall total at like 110, that one's 50-50 for me. So I don't really, it's probably a skip for me, but I think longest rush under 23.5, a little risky because he tends to break a big play, but I like that bet and the Chiefs limiting the explosive runs as they're typically able to do.
What are you getting paid out if he hits that under?
I think it's like, a -110. I think it's had, traditional odds. So
I don't like that bet specifically because the linebacker play for Kansas City is the worst part of their defense. And you know that some of those offensive guards are going to pull and take out Chris Jones and that great defensive line that KC has. I don't know if I can get there with you, Evan. That 23.5 could be demolished quickly when Saquon steps on him in the first quarter.
it's one you feel real dumb about when he breaks a 50-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's really neutralizing Chris Jones in the running game just because he's that good. But I do get what Zach's saying though. It has less to do with the Chiefs defense and more to do with how electric Saquon is, where like you could be so incredibly good and he could still break one. My philosophy is always it's unless they give you some ridiculous line, I never feel good if I bet an under on a player that I know is exceptional because when you lose that bet, it hurts a lot more than if I bet an under on someone who I don't think very highly of. Because if Saquon goes for 50-yard touchdown, we're all going to be smacking ourselves, being like, "Why on earth did we bet against Saquon?"
Yeah. I hate those ones because you then can't root for him to succeed.
Exactly.
You're gonna cringe every time he gets the ball because he's gonna do something miraculous with it. But hey, if we want to switch over to the KC side, I have some interesting ones. Starting off with a next gen stat. The next gen stat being Patrick Mahomes will run under 17.5 miles per hour plus 132 odds. I think the only reason, or I knew you were going to love this one. The only chance, so this is actually 2-part. One is I have been measuring myself with my smartwatch that I got in September on the soccer field to see how fast I truly am. And I've only, unfortunately, only really clocked 14, 15 miles per hour. One day I actually had 25 miles per hour, which is like Usain Bolt speed. So it had malfunctioned that day. But I have done a full-on sprints, and I've run 17.1 miles per hour. And I'm telling you, I could not go an ounce faster than that. The fact that Mahomes would somehow be running over 17.5 miles per hour in open field, which he won't have, I am all for plus 132 under 17.5 miles per hour. Keep in mind, he's fast, but he's a quarterback. All right. I think this is a good bet.
Zach, he's an NFL athlete, no matter how much of a dad body he has, he's an NFL athlete, man. The fact that you use your soccer running as a measure for Patrick Mahomes' speed is the craziest part of this metric. If you hadn't brought that up, I might have agreed with you, but now I'm more inclined to disagree.
I'm crying at this one. I will say, I don't think we can bet this in our app, but if we can, I'm definitely betting this with you because
You can bet it on FanDuel.
Oh, FanDuel has it? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm definitely down to run it for the bit alone.
That might be the only under you get me to bet on it, Patrick Mahomes. Honestly, I might run that with you guys just for fun.
That's
think about it.
hilarious.
How is he going to be able to get up to that speed unless he has like a 30-yard run down the middle of the field? They're going to be spying him. Like they're not going to let him get out in the open like this.
It's funny you say that though, because I actually love the over on Patrick Mahomes rushing props because of the fact that the Eagles they're gonna have to try to take away the run game, the pass game. They're gonna try to pass rush. This is kind of what Mahomes did against the Texans too, who obviously have an elite defense, and even last week against the Bills, whose defense for the most part initially was playing well. They take away everything else, and then he's just super smart about when he chooses to run. And I think I like his decision to run. So I think he'll make smart decisions on when to run. It makes me want to hit the over on his rushing yards, but I also like rushing attempts for him too, because I was actually seeing online it was a popular one as well, because he in these kinds of matchups will do whatever it takes to get the yards that he needs. So I think he will do that smartly. He might not hit 17.5 yards though, so we could definitely do both if we if we want to pair those together. I expect him to get more like 10-yard runs here and there, and accumulate those. Maybe
I
not
think,
a 30
10-yard scampers. 10-yard scampers.
Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes is so elusive, but like
Smart,
with that
yeah.
elusivity, you sacrifice speed.
Yeah,
Sure.
I one of mine was the attempts. I don't love the yards as much just because I think the Eagles do really well at corralling rushing quarterbacks. So I don't see a lot of big ones, but I love the attempts at 6.5 because kneel downs count as attempts as well. So if you think the Chiefs are going to win and potentially kneel down at the end of the game, it might give you another one or two. So, and like Cy hit the nail on the head. He uses his legs really smart in the playoffs, and they even designed a couple of runs for him last week. So, or 2 weeks ago, I should say. But so I like the attempts, yards. I don't dislike the yards, but I definitely like the attempts at 6.5. So,
Yep.
Cool.
I guess I could do another. That is maybe a bit of a cop out, but Kareem Hunt anytime touchdown. I love this. Kareem Hunt's getting in the end zone in this game. That's
I
a
agree.
quick and
I
dirty
love this one.
It's
What's
like
the odds
it's
on
like
that?
it's like plus 110, so it's nothing crazy, but I like Kareem Hunt to get in the end zone in this game.
That'd be a good parlay booster.
Ev, correct me if I'm wrong. Isaiah Pacheco's at 5.5 rushing attempts, right?
I could look up the numbers, but yeah, his numbers are interesting. I was originally very on. Yeah, go ahead.
I like his over on rushing attempts because I think Andy Reid is going to mess with a lot of people where he's been hitting you with Kareem. And obviously, I still think Kareem's going to get more carries, but slowly they've been building up Pacheco. And I believe that he'll get more than 5.5. I'm not saying he's going to get like
I do
20
too.
carries, but I think he'll get a bit more of an even split than we saw a week ago. So
I can see him with like 8 carries. Like,
Yep.
yeah, like under 10 carries, but like a solid like 7, 8, or 9 carries, and he goes for like 30 yards or something.
Exactly, Zach.
Yeah.
And this is not a game where they're just going to throw 100% of the time. They're going to need to run the ball a lot because this defensive line is too good to just try to throw on all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've adjusted my Hunt like carries and yardage to more of a fade than a bet, but I'm not sure I'm all the way in on Pacheco, like betting Pacheco, because we just haven't seen it in the last few weeks. So I agree. There's like been reasons for it. He was coming off an injury and then he had that fumble. So it's like, maybe that was the reason they didn't give him the ball, but I don't know. And Hunt's been running well. So my enthusiasm for betting anything on him.
You remember I mean, I know it was a couple years ago, but I'm just saying, like, he knows how to run against that defense. I mean, if it's 5.5, I think this is a good time to get a good line is all I'm saying. Like, we're getting Pacheco at the lowest we'll ever get him because of those reasons. So it's opportunity for us to get a good bet out there.
Yeah. Mahomes is actually 5.5, not 6.5, so that's good.
Well, it's even better.
Zach, you got another one?
Yeah, I got another one. I like, just from a both team standpoint, minus 106 odds that there are over 2.5 fourth down conversions. I love this. I think both of these teams are going to go for it when they're on the opponent's side of the 50. It's make or break time. Both teams trust their offenses. And I know that there's going to be at least 3 or 4 tush pushes, and I assume at least 3 or 4 of those are successful. And then you definitely know Mahomes is going to cook up something very, very nice to convert on those crucial fourth down plays, which are hand selected before the game even starts by Andy Reid alone. Like, these plays are a 90% success rate just schematically. So I love minus 106 over 2.5 fourth down conversions.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I think that's a good one.
Sticking with the Chiefs. I guess side you got any other Chiefs?
You go. I'll go after you. Yeah.
I like Xavier Worthy to have a good game. I'm debating how to play him. A lot of people are on just the rushing yards, which is like 6.5 or something, which he gets. He's going to get a couple end rounds probably in this game, so it's just a matter of if he breaks one. So I like that. Yeah, I'm debating how to play, but you could do the rushing plus receiving is maybe how I would go. I think it's like maybe 55.5. So I do like him as an anytime touchdown scorer too. A little higher odds, but a little riskier. But I like the chances of him getting in the end zone. So I like Xavier Worthy to have an impact here. The Chiefs like to build their rookies up over the course of the year, and he's been really involved lately. So
Yeah, this might be an obvious one for me, but I like first of all, I like that, Evan. That's good. I like rushing plus receiving. I think that's a good idea. I'm a fan of the Kelsey over on receptions. I just think this is the kind of matchup that's going to be more similar to the Texans one, where last week against the Bills they used the receivers more for success, but in a situation where you're playing against the Eagles secondary with guys who you're going to put on the corners on like guys like DeAndre Hopkins and other players like Marquise Brown, there's going to be a bit more attention diverted to those receivers. And I think Kelsey, especially with the kind of defense the Eagles play across the middle of the field, he's just too smart not to get open in big moments in the Super Bowl. Plus, the guy just shows up in the Super Bowl. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I don't expect him to get 200 yards, but I expect him to make big plays. So I like Kelsey over on receptions.
take the 6.5.
Yeah, man.
The 6.5 at plus 130. I don't know, man.
I'm comfortable
That's
with
a lot.
Well, no, it is a lot, but that's why I want it, because if you're going to give me plus 130 for hitting it, I'm happy with it. I think in
Garner
the Super
Johnson's
Bowl,
going to be on him.
The
I'm
Eagles
not
are
worried
elite
about
against
Gardner
tight
Johnson.
ends. Yeah.
Garner
The Eagles are
Johnson's
elite
the
against
best
tight ends.
safety in the league.
Travis Kelsey knows how to exploit matchups, man. I'm not worried about that. I mean, if it was some run of the mill guy, I would agree with you guys. But we're talking about a guy who every year in the Super Bowl turns it up. I can't. I'm going to put my money on a guy that shows up year in and year out. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Kelsey's a tough one for me. The two smaller ones I like is DeAndre Hopkins under 1.5 receptions. I didn't realize this when we had our podcast last week, but his usage is like very minimal lately. He's basically the wide receiver 4 now, being used just in the red zone. It's like under 40% snap rate. So I didn't realize that when we spoke last week, but so under 1.5 receptions on Nuke, and then Juju over. I think his is maybe 1.5. So he's kind of turned into that number 3 slot. So I'd like him to get a couple catches.
My receiver
I don't love the under. I don't love the under on Hopkins. This is his first and only Super Bowl that he will ever go to. He's going to produce on the field, especially going up against the 4th Eagles corner. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, you're good. I actually, that's a good point, Zach. I think he's going to be very motivated. My thing is, I don't know if it would be the 4th corner on him, just because if Nuke's on the field, even if he's older, they might still put a better guy on him. My thing is actually the guy I would be looking at is Marquise Brown, because every week you see him get used a bit more, and last week he got quite a few targets early in the game. So I could see, if he's fully healthy, Andy Reid dialing up more for him, because he's someone who obviously can get open deep a bit more than some of these guys can, outside of Worthy, of course. I think Marquise is like more of your 3-level receiver for them compared to anyone else they have right now.
Yeah, I feel like Nuke, it's like when he's on the field, he's going to be, I mean, like they're not going to be playing a 4th corner. It's going to be, so he's going to be getting guard by, A.D. Mitchell or Slay. And it's probably red zone is really his package. So I do think they target him a good amount in the red zone. So it's interesting. It's like Juju and Hopkins have the same number, 1.5. So the Chiefs passing game is tough for me on how to bet. I really don't know how to go.
That's what makes him good.
I think
I got another one here. Plus 1,700 odds. Plus 1,700 odds. any player to record a 75-yard touchdown.
Oh no,
I'm
out.
looking Saquon, and we've got Xavier Worthy, and we've got AJ Brown, who are big time playmakers. I just think throwing a quarter of a unit to just see what happens, because any of these guys has proven to put a big play into nothing. And I mean, Saquon, if he's going 60 yards, he can go 70. If he's going 70 yards, he's going 80. No one's touching him if he goes out in the open field. And I think that one of these three players has such a high probability of breaking off a big play that I wouldn't be. I think the plus 17 is outrageous. I think this should be like plus 1100 or something. So I just think from an odds standpoint, it's a good bet.
I think that's a great payout for like a dart throw. I agree, Zach. In terms of ones that would be that high of a payout, that's one of the better ones that I could see. I'm sure the reason it's plus 1700 is because the defenses, like even if someone breaks in the open field, usually they have someone that can, stop them before they get in the end zone. That might be why, but I like that for just a dart throw. I mean, because you're right, there's enough playmakers where you could see someone doing it. Yeah,
Definitely.
I have some dart throws I wrote down as well. I'm trying to find the exact numbers to be specific here, but I don't really have them. So, will the game go into overtime is like plus 1100 or plus 1000? I love that. I might be biased because last year's went into overtime, but I love the idea, like Zach said, of throwing a quarter unit on something that could pay out a lot. So, game to go into overtime, I'm down to hit yes. Safety, yes, is also like over plus 1000. I think it's plus 1400 maybe.
you
I
could
like
convince me on
throwing
that.
that. And then I think 2-point conversion to happen in this game is like plus 300 or something, and that one surprised me quite
That's
a bit.
actually
Like,
wild. Yeah.
I feel like there's a good chance that someone will sneak it, especially with the Eagles. Like, if the Eagles ever get a penalty on the touchdown to make the ball at the one, they're just going to tush push. So they're very aggressive with 2-point conversions, and obviously the Chiefs have like tons of good 2-point plays. So I forget the exact odds. I'll have to dig them up, but it was like way higher than I would have thought. So that's one I really like as well in the random. Pardon my language, random shit category I wrote down in my notebook of bets.
I saw a prop bet earlier that I like too, paired with that, Evan, is both teams to score over 10 points in the first half. I like that one when I saw it. I just think I think it's a pretty unique bet, but I like it because I expect I don't. It's hard for me to envision a world where both of these teams don't get over 10 points in the first half. I'll put it that way. And if I remember correctly, the odds are pretty good. I have to look them up again, but I like ones like that when you compare scoring outcomes. We talked a bit about this last week too.
Yeah.
I like the minus 106. Kansas City will score more points in the second half plus overtime than the first half, because the Chiefs just typically play better in the second half. And if they're behind, then it just means that they're going to start throwing the ball and start unleashing this playbook, this Andy Reid playbook. So I think that's a pretty safe bet. It's not like they're going to stop scoring in the third and fourth quarter, right? If they take an early lead either. So even if they have the lead, they're just going to continue to push the gas pedal once these guys are warmed up. So I like that bet.
I do like this concept and this theme that we've developed of like Eagles jump out to a lead, Chiefs maybe come back and win. So I like whether you want to just do Eagles first half spread or you want to do, Eagles win first half, Chiefs win the game. And then what you just mentioned, Zach, I like these types of bets as well.
Also, shout out to, most kicking points for Harrison Butker. I love this at minus 132. I think Jake Elliott is going to get absolutely destroyed in this game compared to Harrison Butker. And also Kansas City at minus 142 odds with the longest field goal made. That's not even like minus 200. This is minus 140 we're talking about. These kicking ones, I think we can make a lot of money on. My money is on Harrison Butker as opposed to Jake Elliott.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't like the guy, but I'll whatever. If the bet's good, then we'll make money. I'll put it that way, and focus on Mahomes winning.
All right, what else? What else we got? I got
one. I got
go
one.
for it.
You guys ready?
Yep.
For the heads tails analytics.
Oh, no, we gotta save that till the end.
No,
save it till the end. Save.
Okay. All right. I got another one for you guys. Plus 750. Plus 750 odds. Travis Kelce proposes to Taylor Swift after the game. Plus 750.
Well, then you better believe the Chiefs are winning then, because he's definitely not doing it after they lose.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's actually okay. Let's analyze that bet. That's a
I'm down.
great point, Si. So if Kansas City wins, right, which is like it's like minus, we'll say 120. I mean, if they win, then they're essentially saying there's like a 1/4, like a 25% chance that Travis Kelce gets on one knee and proposes to Taylor Swift just based on the plus 750 odds, because that's essentially requiring two things. So it's like if you get the minus 120 and Chiefs win the football game, then the remainder to make that plus 750, we'll say that's like, I don't know, minus 350 odds. Or
Yeah,
I don't
I was
know,
gonna say like
whatever the
400.
odds
Yeah,
are. Yeah, so it's like literally like there's a 1/4% chance that Vegas is placing in Travis Kelce getting on one knee and proposing
Oh
to
my
his
God.
girlfriend.
I love it.
Well,
I'm
but
not.
let me
I
ask you
hate
this.
them. I hate the bet, but I love that it's available.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much for first quarter under 9.5. I know you guys are less amenable to unders in the overall game, but I think it's going to be lower scoring, and I think they'll get off to a slow start. So I'd love it more at 10.5 because you can get like a 7-3. And I
I was
think
just
these are
gonna
going to be
say 7-3 seems very doable though.
It does. It does.
I like the slower paced offenses, couple punts early. So first quarter under 9.5.
A couple punts early could still very easily yield a 7-3 first quarter game.
I also
I don't
don't know
think
that
so.
we're gonna see a couple punts early. I just don't think either.
Yeah.
These teams are good at game
Yeah.
planning, man. Like, you know
I'm
what I mean?
so
Like
out on the
I don't
under
think Andy
9.5.
Reid.
On both sides of the ball. On both sides of the ball.
Dude, that's
I think
literally
it's
that's
gonna
like
be a
literally
slow
saying
start.
like it's gonna be a 40-point game. You might as well just bet the under 48.5.
Oh, I would bet the under 48 or 49.5. Yeah.
I mean,
think it's
that
over.
I think I'm probably more okay with betting the under at 49 than I am 9.5 in the first quarter. Especially
Yeah.
because I feel like both of these teams, as much as we've talked about prior year Super Bowls, this year in the playoffs, both of these teams have not been slow starters. They both come out and put points on the board early. I think their game plans this year have been more, you know, more gearing towards that direction. Like I think it's more likely that they will get there.
The Chiefs always start slow in the Super Bowl, though. Too. I think it's gonna be a bit of a sluggish start for the Chiefs. So I think that's all I got, though. What else
Different
you guys
year,
got?
different team. You never know.
So Evan's guy is Goddard. Cy, your guy is Devonta Smith. I'm trying to think of who my guy is going to be. Who's like a guy that has lower over under that's just going to soar? Like I'm thinking like of guys like Noah Gray. I'm thinking of guys like like
People
like
are on the Noah
Gainwell.
Gray. People are
Like-
on Noah Gray receptions.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think like who are we missing that's like
Who's your
a really
ride or
eye-opening
die?
candidate? Yeah, who's
I mean,
your ride or die?
Hollywood could be one. I gotta look
I
at his
like
numbers,
Hollywood.
but
Yeah.
it could be one.
I like
'Cause
Isaiah Pacheco. I kind of go back to what Sai's saying. I think he's over 5.5. I would even take him on his over on his carries, or sorry, his rushing yards, whatever those are.
I think he gets involved. I agree with you, Zach. I don't think that he's going to have some exceptional game, but I think he's going to do more than he's done in prior weeks.
The interesting thing is because I know a lot of people, and I suggested this as well, that the Mahomes over on receptions, given that you kind of got a dink and dunk against the Eagles. So, and the over under is
You
like
mean
in the mid
completions?
20 completions. Sorry, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So if he's completing like say 25 balls, like they got to go someone. And these over under totals on their receivers, with the exception of Kelce, are very low.
Right.
Like we mentioned, Nuke and Juju, and then Hollywood Browns is like 3.5. So like
I like the
Someone's gotta-
Hollywood one.
someone's got to catch the passes. So if we
What's-
think he's going over on completions, then we should be hitting overs. You know, that
I almost
correlation
think
there.
the yardage on Hollywood is what I like more because he's the type of guy that can break like a 40-yard catch very quickly. So like you don't have to rely as much on receptions, but I could definitely see Hollywood Brown getting open in the middle of the field at some point in the game and Mahomes darting him. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. The Chiefs
Mhm.
receivers. I don't know how to play it. I don't know how to
Yeah.
play it. 'Cause
That's
I
the thing
envision-
with their defenses too.
I envision a dink and dunk game, but then then who do you give the receptions to? Obviously Kelce, but then the Eagles shut down the tight end. I don't know. This is a tough betting game.
And Juju
Tough
can't
bet.
get off like a Cooper DeJean like 5-yard press, like you know what I'm saying?
It's a
Like
tough matchup for
I
him.
think Hollywood Brown is actually that guy. Now, the more I think about it, I think he's the skilled guy on those like quick slants to get where like Mahomes has to get the ball out quick because Jalen Carter's breathing down his neck. I actually really like Hollywood Brown. I do.
Yep. What's
So we're
the over under on tackles plus assists for Chris Jones? I love tackles plus assist props, guys. We've actually done pretty well with those in prior years. Some of the linebackers and guys you guys like, I would highly recommend we look at the over unders on those.
I like Bolton. Bolton was one I had written down.
There you go. There you go.
Gonna have to stop Saquon. I did see on the internet that the Zach Bond one is a bit overinflated. It's like 10.5, but he's only averaging like in the 8s. So those are the only two notes I have on. Hold on, I have it pulled up. It's
Shamari Connor over whatever his tackles are because he's the Virginia Tech Hokie that Philly will be targeting for sure.
He'll be allowing the catches, so he'll be racking up the tackles.
Tackle him more.
Exactly.
Unless the catches go over his head, then he won't be tackling anyone.
Chris Jones is like 4 plus is plus 130.
Yeah.
Connor's about 5, Zach. So they might be on board with you that he's going to be allowing receptions and needing to clean them up.
Yeah, unless he gets benched in the first quarter, which is a high possibility. You can't record tackles when you get burned on a 75-yard play and you get benched for the rest of the game.
I think Chris Jones will come out to play in the Super Bowl per usual too. So I like something like that as an over for him, especially when you're getting plus 130.
Sweet. I think we got some good options on the board. I don't have a ton of others. The other one of my favorite is that the game will be tied after 0-0. It's I think in the minus 150-ish range. I feel like that's a very likable bet.
I love that
agree.
bet.
I like that one a lot. Yeah. That's a good one.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, I think we did that last time and it hit. I love that bet.
All right, so should we circle back on our Super Bowl picks? Ev, I'll kick it over your direction and see. You were kind of the one that was like flip-flopping back and forth. Like, what is your overall thoughts on how you think the game's going to go?
Maybe you should do your coin toss. I'm not even sure up to this moment. I've decided who I think is going to win this football game.
No.
Or is the coin toss not for it?
No, coin toss.
The coin toss is for the day.
It's only reserved for the three of us. We could share it. We could share it after Zach makes it. That is a MDS specific bet because I don't want Zach to tell me. I want the hype of the actual. I want to share it with all the people that are there. If you show up for MDS Super Bowl party, then you get the right coin toss from Mr. Zach McCulloch.
That's
Up until then, you don't get anything. I'm
literally 4 for 4 for anyone who's listening to this. I'm 4 for 4. All New York Super Bowls I've been
Zach,
right.
please be right this time when we announce it to the entire crowd.
I've done my research.
And they all bet with us.
It's a lot.
It'll be right after trivia. Yeah.
Love it.
All right, Jerry, I got to make my pick now. I can't stall any longer.
Yep.
You can go first, Zach, if you want.
All right, I'll go first. I think this is going to upset both of you guys, but I just think logically, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles to win this football game. And it's not that I have this vendetta against the Chiefs. I'm going to continue to stick to my guns. Like, I acknowledge the Chiefs proved me wrong yet again, and I will take a differentiated view on them moving forward because I need to. Because they are a fantastic football team and they're 16-1 for a reason. They have the best coaching staff in the entire NFL, and they have the best quarterback in the NFL by far. But here's the thing. Philadelphia has so much talent around them, especially on the defensive front. And the successes that Patrick Mahomes experienced against the Bills, he's going to have a lot harder of a time against this Philadelphia Eagles where they can rush for. But you never know. Vic Fangio might switch it up because he also knows that Mahomes strategically or historically plays really well against them. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles defense to withhold and withstand that Kansas City Chiefs offensive onslaught. Kind of corrals them, controls them. They make some individualistic plays, pass deflections from their elite corners. And then that turns over to long flowing, almost Washington Commander-like drives. We're talking 15-play, 75, 80-yard drives where Jalen Hurts is running for first downs. They're doing a tush-push. Saquon's eating, and then both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are cutting little slides, out patterns, just efficiency across the board. I think Philly plays a really good game, and I think this is going to be a field goal walk-off, so I'm sticking to my guns. I think there's just too much talent here, and I think Philadelphia, who has been yearning and craving for a Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts has been craving it for 4 years. He remembers what it felt like when he lost it, and he is so prepared. And I think this team just goes to new heights, no pun intended, and they take down the Kansas City Chiefs.
He picks on Jake Elliott, and then he says he's going to win the Super Bowl on his foot. I love it. Sai, you sticking with Chiefs?
I think you should go first, Tav. Yeah.
But I know that you're going to stick with the Chiefs, so there's more drama
you haven't
with my
decided.
pick.
Oh, you haven't decided yet. Okay. Well, yes, I'm sticking with the Chiefs. Is the spread still 2? Is the spread still 2?
I think
it's 1.5.
It's 1.
Yeah,
Okay.
1.5.
So which makes sense. I think it should have either been even or at 1. And to be very fair to Zach, in the past, I as much as I give him crap for him picking against the Chiefs every time, I totally understand why he picked the Eagles. Their talent is undeniable. They obviously have, like, they're great at almost every position, and admittedly they have good coaching too. But my number one thing though is I just can't pick against the team that knows how to get it done in the big moment, and I can't pick against the quarterback who just elevates beyond anyone else that I've seen when the lights are the brightest. I can't pick against the coach. I can't pick against a coach who knows how to game plan for any situation, and I can't pick against a DC who is arguably the best DC I have seen in recent memory. I think in just so many different ways, the Chiefs have this kind of almost like science. They have this kind of science that they follow that allows them to win, and the science usually revolves around doing enough to get Mahomes the ball last. And that's all it takes. That's all they need to do in the Super Bowl. Get him the ball last and he will win you the game. And they know that. Talent, Eagles get the nod in terms of who I think is going to execute better. And this is not a knock against the Eagles. The Eagles could play an exceptional game and they could still lose this game because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. And I think the creativity of the blitz packages that Spags is going to draw out is going to put the Eagles on their toes enough to have to, either turn the ball over or give the ball back enough times. And I think the Chiefs are going to do. I think the Chiefs are going to do a way better job of controlling the clock than people realize. I think Vic Fangio has been coaching for long enough that I don't think he can just change his core principles of his defense. And no matter how much he changes things up, the Chiefs eat that defense alive. And I think that's going to come to help them out as well. So at the end of the day, I'm rolling with Patrick Mahomes. I'm rolling with the Chiefs. I think they'll win this game, and I think it'll be a good close game. By the way, it's not a blowout, but I think the Chiefs will win. Yeah.
All right, looks like I got to break a tie. Well, I picked the Chiefs last week. It's very tough. I think this is a 50-50 game, but I can't believe I'm going to say this, and I hate it, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm flip-flopping off of the Chiefs. I think there's too much talent. There's too much juice out there that this is just going to be the Chiefs, so they're going to repeat. There's just too much of that, and the Eagles have just been quiet in the background. I think they're going to find a way to get it done. I think it's going to go barely over. It might even hit like 50 or something. I think that over-under is going to be very close, but I think it's not going to be some shootout. I think their defense is going to make enough plays. They're going to get a few sacks of their own. The Chiefs are going to struggle to move the ball, and I think the offense is going to play well. Obviously, you got Barkley, and I do think Jalen's going to take a few sacks, but ultimately, I think they're going to do just enough, and they're going to find a way to win this football game. Still torn, but I'm flipping to the Eagles to win the Super Bowl and stop the Chiefs three-peat.
I'm so proud of you, Evan.
I was not expecting him to flip after picking the Chiefs last week. You must have been doing some soul searching there, Ev. Or at least thinking very deeply about it.
Well, I was torn, and I'm also trying to read the tea leaves on what people are betting, and a lot of people are betting like as if they think the Eagles are going to win, which doesn't really mean anything. But I don't know.
Let me ask you this, Si. If we knew the result of the game, right, but we didn't know who won, we just knew the score, and the score was 34-17, who do you think has a higher likelihood of blowing the other team out?
The Chiefs.
See, I don't think so because they haven't historically blown anybody out this season. My point though is my reason for picking that isn't because I think the Chiefs are the team that's going to blow a team out more. My reason for picking that is I think the Chiefs are the team the least likely to get blown out by someone else. They don't do that. They're way too smart and they're way too good at keeping games close to let a team blow them out. It doesn't happen. The reason they're 16-1 wasn't because they're blowing teams out, you're right. But the reason they're 16-1 is because every game they played was close till the end. And when the game matters and it's close at the end, they win. That's just what they do. No one's blowing the Chiefs out. That's just not how they play football. That's an interesting response. I get where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense. That's a good rebuttal. I'm just saying if the score, right, and this is huge but if the score was 34-17 my money is that the Eagles would win that football game because they have a history of taking over games and then preventing the other team from coming back, or for the prevention of keeping the game close. They're really good at closing opponents out. So if the Eagles do have the lead, who says they won't expand on it, right? Like if we think that they're going to start pretty hot the first quarter, first half, and then the Chiefs are going to come back, like let's just say that Chiefs comeback doesn't happen because Philadelphia keeps scoring. I can see something like that happening in this game, more so for the Eagles than the Chiefs.
I mean, I get
Agreed.
where you're coming from. I get where you guys are coming from when you say, "Oh, they're the team that's more likely to win by a larger margin," maybe. But when is
Mhm.
the last time we've seen the Chiefs in the playoffs have a game where someone has not only beaten them but actually blown them out? It doesn't happen, guys. Like the last time
Yeah.
that happened was when Patrick Mahomes played Tom Brady against the Buccaneers, and his offensive line couldn't block a fly. That's the last time we saw that. It just doesn't happen. I get what you're saying. Like if you're using logic against a regular team, like a run of the mill, a team that you see every year, whatever it is. But if you're talking about a team that's a dynasty, you're talking about a team that's going for a three-peat, they don't get blown out. You don't get to a three-peat, even whether you win or lose. You don't get to three Super Bowls in a row, having won two in a row and won three out of four by getting blown out in the Super Bowl. No matter, and if we use that logic, last year when they played the 49ers, it's the same matchup that we see right now. The 49ers last year were a way better team in terms of talent. We all agreed upon that. And you could argue the Chiefs last year were worse than they are now in terms of what they brought into the Super Bowl. And what happened? The Chiefs won that game because they got the ball last. That's the logic I'm using. I'm saying, like, you're right. If you're just using pure logic, I totally understand where you guys are coming from. But I'm looking at it from the context of a team that has done this consistently for multiple years in a row. It's hard for me to ever say a blowout's going to happen. Could they lose? Yeah, but I don't see them losing 34-17. It's just not. I don't. That's not the bet I would make.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen by any means, but if it does, if that is the final score, I agree with you. Then that would mean that the Eagles won.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too because they're.
That's why I go Philly. Yeah, that's just why I go Philly, because I think they're a better team. Like, admittingly, like Sai saying that, hey, the Chiefs have a worse roster rate. They don't have Rasheed Rice. They don't have like L'Jarius Sneed. They've lost a couple of guys over the past couple of seasons. Philly's only reloaded, and it's going to be a really interesting game. I am so excited for this game. And to Sai's point, these are the two best teams, and really, this was the best Super Bowl matchup. I know everyone was excited for the Bills and the Eagles. I agree with Evan. I think the Eagles would have killed the Bills. I do.
Yeah.
And the Commanders did not deserve to be in the Super Bowl, but they will be there in the next couple of years. But, I just think that this was the best overall matchup. So, boys, I am so pumped. We're going New York City for it, and we get to watch this game again.
Yeah. I got one more point, though. One more last note that I just thought of while you were talking about that, Zach. If the Chiefs go up big, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if the Chiefs were to go up by multiple scores, let's say they score a touchdown, Philly turns the ball over, they score again. Who do you trust more if a team is up by multiple possessions to come back and win the game? Because I could very much argue that Philly has not been in a position where they've been down in games much this year, especially by multiple scores going against a Spags defense that, obviously is so it's extremely smart about how they approach games. And all Mahomes has to do is ice clock. And he's so good at doing that. So that's my counter argument. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but we've been operating under this presumption that the Chiefs are going to start slow. They haven't really started slow much this playoff. So if they don't start slow and they score a bunch, like right off the bat, then it becomes a game they control too. So it could go both ways. That's all I'm saying. But
That's
true.
true.
That's why I threw it out there, because you're right. It's such a fun game, and it really could go both ways. And we got the best matchup, man. We really did. You said it right.
Yeah. The Eagles, that's a good rebuttal, actually. Ev, what do you think about that? The Eagles, they don't play very well playing behind. And it's kind of, what it mirrors? It mirrors the 49ers last year. 49ers, immense talent around them, but the 49ers like to control the game. Brock Purdy was incredible when the team was leading because it sets up the play action and they play more comfortably, and Jalen Hurts is a very similar player.
I think he might surprise people in this game, actually, and almost have a game more similar to what he was having 2 years ago. I think that could happen, and I also just don't see the Chiefs I don't see the Eagles not being attached in this one.
No, you're
Like,
not. I'm not saying that's going to happen.
I don't see that
I'm just
happening.
saying, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just more saying that it could, by the same logic of the Chiefs being down multiple scores. If you go the other way around, even if the Chiefs go down 2 scores, we've seen Mahomes the last 2 Super Bowls be down 2 scores and come back and win that game. The flip side of that, though, is the Chiefs go up. All I'm saying is if you turn the Philadelphia Eagles into a purely passing offense, they're not going to win this game. I stand by that. You can't make them one dimensional, and if they get a lead, you make them one dimensional.
The Eagles are going to be able to run the ball, though. The Chiefs are not going to be able to shut down the run at all. I mean, the Bills ran the ball on them easily. They can limit big plays, but they're going to be able to run for 5 yards to carry pretty easily. I think.
Dude, and the Eagles have the best secondary in the league, man. This is if Mahomes starts to just start throwing the ball left and right. That's why I think Philly's going to have the first interception, the Philly defense.
This is going to be so good. I mean, the more we talk about this, the more I get amped up because this matchup is just so ridiculously good when you think about it. I mean,
I know.
Can I ask you guys this though? Can I ask you guys this though? If Mahomes wins this, what conversation are we having next week?
For Pete. I know what you're getting at, but I don't want to give you the.
Would you guys proclaim it? How close would you be to proclaiming it? I just want to know. If he three-peats, and that's his 4th championship in 5 years, I want to know what your how close you are.
I don't like having these arguments until we've seen the full career.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so you're right. But it's
your point is it. So your point is saying that if the Super Bowl is his last game, he walked off the field, pulled an Andrew Luck, and retired before the next season. Obviously not going to happen. But if he did that, would we consider him the greatest of all time? Is that that's kind of the premise here?
I think that's probably if I tee it up that way, that's probably unfair to him and to you guys. For me, it's more given his trajectory and what he's doing, do you think he will surpass Brady one day? It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be. But I'm saying as currently constructed, would you consider him the best player you've seen with your eyes? I'm not saying is he the greatest in terms of accomplishments. I'm saying given what he's accomplished in the time that you've seen him, would you consider him the best quarterback you've watched? That's more the conversation I'm having.
I mean, the numbers and accolades, it's not really debatable that he's ahead of Brady's pace at this point, even if he doesn't win this game, probably, because statistically he's way ahead of him.
Yeah, he is.
And Brady got his trophies later. But the unbelievable thing about Brady and why people are considered the GOATs is the longevity, as I always said, which is why I want to see the full career. He was winning, he won a title in his 40s, which is incredibly difficult to do. So I do think their arcs, like I mentioned, I think last week, was incredibly similar. Mahomes is starting to play like Brady did, where he's good defense, doesn't have to put the team on his back the whole time. It's very similar. So,
yeah. I think it's more I see it as at his peak, I see him being the best I've ever seen, and him three-peating is just going to continue to add to that. Which even if he doesn't three-peat, I'm still going to feel that way, as you mentioned, Ed, because he'll already be ahead of that pace because he's 10 years behind when Brady retired and already will have captured about half the number of Super Bowls, if not more. But it's just the notion that someone could three-peat in this era. It doesn't even seem real. We've never seen it. So it's history. So we'll see what happens.
We will indeed. Any last words, Gent, before we the next time we are on air, we will have a Super Bowl champion. We will have the 2024 NFL season in the books. So get your last words out now.
Yo, are we gonna vlog?
We'll try and get a couple videos. Yeah, it won't be a live vlog. We gotta enjoy the game, guys.
We'll try and get some content for the people. Hopefully, more enjoyable content than the last time we vlogged. Shout out anyone that remembers that. But
you meant the whole weekend? I thought Zach meant the Super Bowl event itself. I was like, we might need to watch the game a bit, but I definitely think we need to get a bunch of Snap stories, or not Snap, Instagram stories, or whatever else, though. For sure.
Yeah, but look at the Instagram. The Instagram will have the content, and everyone that cannot attend will see what they're missing out. And hey, if there's enough excitement around it, then maybe we'll do it again next year. But yeah, can't wait for this weekend, gents. Looking forward to the game and all the festivities that come with it. So yeah, without further ado, that was Monday's Down South just before the Super Bowl.